So in this video, we're going to talk about Captionator using the Siri engine. Now before version 2, Captionator can only use the Siri engine. Now it was reasonably accurate, but it definitely had some things left to be desired. So to get to the Siri settings, we're going to open up Captionator and we're going to select Captionator and settings. Now partway down, we're going to have the engine. We're going to switch that over to Siri. And then it's going to give us a whole list of languages that we want to use. And in this case, you'll notice that there's a cloud icon versus a little computer icon. Now the computer icon means that it's going to be using on-device translation. And that means it has unlimited length time to actually transcribe that. So it'll transcribe 10 minutes or an hour-long video for you if you want. If it has a cloud, that means there's no language pack installed or the language pack doesn't support on-device translation. Now this is a limitation from Apple, and unfortunately there's no real good workaround for this, which is partially why we switched over to Whisper. Now these cloud icons unfortunately mean that it is limited to a 60-second time limit, and that's just imposed by Apple. There's no way around that. But if we want to add more languages, we have to go up into our system preferences, up in the Mac setting here, system settings. And first things first is we're going to want to make sure that Ask Siri is enabled. So we click on the Siri in Spotlight and make sure that's checked off, and that's good. The next thing we're going to want to do is go under Privacy and Security and go under our Speech Recognition and make sure Captionator is enabled. Now, if you don't see that there, you just have to do a transcription first, and then it will add that setting into this panel for you. And it should check it off by default, but if it's not checked in here, then Siri will not actually work for transcriptions. Now, the last setting is over here in your general page under Languages and Region. And if you scroll all the way to the bottom, there's translation languages, and you want to click that. And you'll see there's a whole bunch of languages that are going to appear in here. And we have English UK, English US, we see Japanese, Polish, Russian, Spanish, etc. Now, most of these, if you install them, they will give you access to on-device transcription so that it's not limited to the 60-second with Siri. But there is still some bugs in the Siri system. So you'll notice here that I have Chinese and Mandarin, and as well as also have English UK installed. And if we go into this languages here, we see English United Kingdom is still cloud. And this is a weird bug. It's been happening in the kind of later versions of Ventura. Hopefully Apple's going to fix this later, but this list is populated directly from the operating system. And the way to kind of get around this and to kind of make them start showing up is you have to remove the language and then you have to click download again. And it's going to take a minute to download that language pack there. And then when we reboot the computer and open up Captionator again, they should start appearing. Now, in some cases, some of the languages simply aren't supported. Even though they'll have the language pack installed, Siri still doesn't actually support doing on-device translation. So that's generally why I always recommend using Whisper. Whisper actually supports way more languages, almost 100 different languages, and it's also more accurate. So Siri is here mostly as a legacy feature in case you still want to go back to it, or if there's some weird bug in Whisper for you. But that's the main settings for Siri. The last setting here is the cloud settings. And by default, it's set for Allow Cloud. That'll allow it to use the cloud transcription service if the language doesn't have the language pack installed and won't throw an error. You can do Force Cloud, where it's only ever going to use cloud transcription. It's never going to use on-device. That's only really for debugging purposes. And the last one is only local, so that if the language pack isn't installed or isn't working correctly, it absolutely will not fall back to the cloud. So in general, I would recommend setting for all Allow Cloud. Now, if you use Captionator version 1, you'll notice that one setting is missing, and that is the Force Local Transcription. That's actually replaced by this cloud setting here. So I would generally recommend leaving it on Allow Cloud, and that should let it dynamically switch between cloud and non-cloud. Now, the last setting for Siri is the same one we use for Whisper, and that is the request configuration before transcription. And I'm going to show you how that works right now. So we click the export button here, Captionator. It's going to do its thing. Take a second to export from Final Cut. And now we've got this different page here, and it's It's got the same types of settings, but it has some slightly different ones as well. So you can select your language here, and that's very useful if you're doing multi-language, so if you're doing multiple languages for different customers. But there's also this extra page for the hint text, and we can either disable it, use hint words, or hint phrases. Now, the reason this is useful for Siri is it lets it kind of teach Siri new words that aren't necessarily common words. So say you've got some extra jargon words because you're making a very technical video, you can put those words in this hint text and it should be able to distinguish those. Now the other option is hint phrases, and this is if you want to put in entire sentences and have Siri try to figure out where those sentences are. Hint phrases does work, but it's kind of hit or miss for most people. So I would generally recommend always setting hint words. Also, if it's a very common word, it's already included in the list. So putting in words like the and don't make a lot of sense to put in here. One very useful use of this box as well is if you can actually copy paste in your entire script into this text box, and it will be able to read your script and try to figure out where all those words are. So this is only available for Siri because Siri kind of needs to be taught sometimes which non-common words there are. Whisper doesn't have this box because it just simply doesn't need it. And that's how you use Siri with Captionator. Now in the next video, I'm going to show you how to effectively use the title and caption splitter, which will let you kind of change the style of how you want the title. So if you don't want one word per title, if instead you want an entire sentence or multiple sentences, you can do that in there. So stick around for that.